Well, good morning again, at least good morning for those of you on the West Coast. This is day 2 of our Become a Precogger by Doing It. I actually want to start this one using a slide I meant to end the last one with, and it just didn't work out because of timing. I think this is just needs to be the basis of really what we're doing here. I mean, we're getting in touch with the deep part of ourselves, opening up communications channels, and all of that, in fact, works better with this kind of mindset, that we're doing it for health, wealth, and wisdom. And the wealth, actually, wealthy, when you look it up, has very deep meaning. It goes back to the word wheel, W-A-L, which really includes sharing with the community, much bigger than just the way many people think of being rich, and the image that's being put out now about people who do have a lot of money, that somehow they're evil. Wealthy, in fact, has the exact opposite kind of connotation, and that is the connotation I mean here, is to use these gifts, which are natural gifts, for bigger purposes than just personal financial wealth. And in fact, the greatest wealth is indeed health. Without health, very little else actually matters in this physical world of ours. So that was how I wanted to end the last one. We really are in a rather big context. In fact, I see us being part of a consciousness paradigm shift, and that will in fact include health. As this communication channel opens up, there are going to be all kinds of opportunities for increasing our personal health as well as others. Okay, so let's go now. I'd like to actually review using the 2 slides that I really believe, bottom line, are the most important about the precognition and retrocausality, which is just sort of another word for it. And that is the following 2. So let me start with this one. Setting up your intention to create this RV transcript during your RV session for your specific coordinate, and to get a good match to the feedback target for that coordinate is what it's all about. With the simple cue, describe and sketch your feedback target. And so this is the connection that matters, remote viewing to precognition. And then the intention again at the feedback session to improve this connection, to improve and open your communication channel. Now you've got the truth in front of you. I mean, what a wonderful system where you can see how well you did and you can always learn. And again, I will remind you, the target is the feedback photo site. Feedback photo site. In terms of the task that you're doing, that is the target. The other part of this, which is very important, is the expectation. Getting into the mindset of expecting that you're going to do well, being confident you're going to be doing well, is another key, in my opinion, to becoming a good precogger. The technique we have set up here really is for the long term, and getting into this expectation mode, this confident mode, is part of the journey. Now, some of you actually, I think, are already there. We saw some extraordinary sessions, and if you've got that confidence, that's terrific. But that is certainly part of what we want everyone to have, because it's part of being successful. You just sort of expect it. This is a natural talent. You've got it. You're choosing to apply it in this fashion. Here is a summary of the predictions we made yesterday. And you recall we had the 2 photo sites. I'm only going to show them now since we have an outcome, the correct one associated with this. We had predicted photo site B, and that prediction was made based on having the highest scores, the 5s, 6s, and 7s, more on this side than this side. So we'll say more on this photo site than with this photo site. But I even though that's the way I emphasized it and made the choice with the highest ones, the 4s are very good sessions. And we had a lot of 4s on both sides. Again, that turns out to be typical. Nobody is 100%, so we tend to get a mix. I'm still working on improving how you make a group prediction when you have mixes like this, but generally I am at the point, and different people do it differently, different group managers, but I'm at the point where I tend to look at the highest ones, see if I believe they're correct. The judging is about right, and then if there's a majority on one side or the other, I'll go with that. The other thing I look at is the difference in the confidence rankings. Here Noreen had a 3 and a 6, okay, so she was much more strongly keyed in here. But even this, a 4 and a 2, and look at this 5 and a 1. This is showing some sort of displacement, and we're going to talk about that a little later. But this is the real world, and it depends on different people. Some people rarely displace, other people displace more often. And I think it's actually something important for those people to look at, because it's something with their communication channel. I mean, there isn't anybody else involved in this approach, which is so wonderful about it. Okay, so here's a table again, just the numbers. I talked about the CR equal 4. The next thing I want to show you is that we did choose photo site B. The prediction was under. The way this was sent out to everybody who was involved in the CARV group, I didn't send it out to all of you individually, but you knew the prediction was under because you saw my personal prediction, which was our webinar prediction. But this then goes out, and after here, I hope all of you will be in one of our groups. And so this is typical of how the group finds out what the group prediction is. So they know their personal prediction, and then they know the group prediction. So in this case, the group prediction was in fact under. It was associated with side 2. Now the coordinate that we used was actually side 1 is the first coordinate, but it essentially was a no, so that means it shows up as side 2. Again, don't let this intellectual stuff, unless you really want to understand it intellectually, just describe and sketch your photo, because the software, the protocol takes care of all of that. And guess what? Here was the game outcome, and the Packers, who were the favorite, I believe, indeed beat the Bears, but we don't care about that. We were doing an over-under. The line, remember, was 46, and we indeed were under that with a total of 36 points. So we got a nice hit. And I was quite happy about that, of course, when I looked after the game. Again, I'm not a big fan, don't watch the games, but I looked after the game. And this is pretty typical, whether you're doing sports or financials. And even when you get, and I'm going to show you that, you'll get an email that'll show this. You're going to know at the beginning, early on, whether you got a hit or a miss, because you'll know whether your personal prediction was over or under or a pass. And so that's pretty typical. But that's, in some sense, it's the very beginning of the feedback, but it's clearly not the most important part. The most important part, as I think you all know by now, is actually doing the full-up feedback session. So let me just go a little further here, and then we're going to do just that. And I'll show you how that's done with the online approach and what I recommend that you do. Here happens to be my little ticket. If you remember, I actually put in a wager, and I made $40. I don't know if any of you, I think one person at least told me they were going to. And I hope maybe others of you did, but it's fun. But one of the key parts, and I just can't overemphasize this, is to always wager wisely, get rich slowly. I actually believe this is a part of being successful with your precognition. If you have the long-term perspective, which says, yeah, I can do precognition. It's just a natural thing. I'm integrating it into my life, and I'm simply going to use it in a wise way, as I hope I do with other parts of my life. And so that's what I'll do. And every one of your wagers should feel like it's a wise wager, because you're not 100%. And then that fits with this get rich slowly. You don't have to rush it. You can just simply wager a little bit at a time and have it become part of your life. And the fact is, I do believe you can get wealthy. And yes, you can make money at this, but it needs to be integrated with the rest of your life for it to be really meaningful. So the individual, and I think intellectually you would all agree with this, it's a matter of doing it and doing the integration with your life. That's kind of the key here. Okay, and there is clearly the short-term and the long-term. The long-term perspective, in my opinion, is the most important. The short-term is the one single remote viewing session and feedback session that you do. And of course, those are important too, because those collectively are what make up the long-term. So it's this integration. All of this is powered by feedback, and your feedback session, and it's personal feedback. This whole system is really set up to be very personal. So let's do it. You know, the CARV group made a prediction. After I saw the outcome, I sent a email to them. So here's my email thing. Here's the CARV group. And I showed you the prediction email, and then I sent out the feedback email, which is here. So typically, whatever group you're in, this is a sports group, but the financial groups are really the same. They indicate what the event was. I put in a little comment, which I write here, but the winning side, in fact, was under, which was side 2, just as predicted. A group hit, 36 point game, which was under the 46 line. And then I always suggest something like, do your feedback sessions, whether you had a personal hit, miss, or pass, and do your feedback to benefit your future precognition as well as your past entanglements. Okay, so the future is in the now, as the past is. So you get an email like this. Again, this is all online, and so you click here, as I will do now, and it says the CARV group. We've got confirmation that we're doing the right event, and then remember I did this for the group under my name, and when I click here, aha, that should look familiar, right? Isn't that cool? So there's the picture with the coordinate. So this is the feedback target for 763965, period. This was your target when you did your RV session for all of us, for all of you. So now is the time when we'll do it. And I'm going to give you my suggestions. Everybody comes up ultimately with their own way of doing it, but this is a very important time. I suggest you get out your transcript, and this time maybe in a different color pencil, a pen, whatever, mark on it. Some people like to use a different sheet of paper, and if you want to do that to preserve the original, you can. I am going to ask you to email me your sessions, your feedback sessions, because I'd like to discuss them to see what you did. You all will do things somewhat differently. But the thing to do is, and let's just assume you're doing this on your transcript, look now. First of all, you should have big smiles on your face. Those of you certainly that got the hits. Also, I always recommend that you trace over, so you physically, this is very kinesthetic, that you actually physically right now write over the coordinate again. You wrote it at remote viewing time, trace over it now. And as you trace over it, say it out loud. I had suggested that mildly at remote viewing time originally, but I believe that this is a good way of entangling your remote viewing session with your feedback session. So why don't you do it now? Write over the coordinate and say it out loud personally. The vibrations, it's not memorizing it, it's the vibrations to your body, to your subconscious, and as you're saying it, you of course are intending to entangle with it. And you're also telling your sub, hey, maybe this is what I'm going to be doing for the future one, so you can look out for that with the future coordinates. So you're setting up a system, a protocol that will work for you time after time, most of the time. On your transcript, the things which were good hits, matches, hell, circle them. Feel really good about them. Smile. Oh yeah, that was terrific when I got it. And you might remember how it felt when you got it. You know, you wrote something down on your piece of paper, you got the word, but there was probably more flavor to it than you could ever get down on a sheet of paper. Just get all that. This is the feedback time. This is when you know the truth and you can remember what happened at remote viewing time and connect that. That's a way of entangling these. So just do a lot of that now and give yourself credit. You know, it's hard to get a miss where you got nothing, but it may be. But if there's something there which was close or something which, gee, I could have interpreted that to be this, you know, tell your sub that and say, you know, next time, you know, maybe be a little clearer. The biggest challenge is when you get misses, and there's almost always the most to learn when that happens. And this is a time when you're talking through your communication channel with your subconscious, remembering the feedback. I mean, you're working this always with the intention to expand that communication channel. Now, one other thing which I always recommend is add something that you wish you had done, and something quick, just a quick little up and down, maybe 3 lines up. If you don't get colors, and this is an opportunity to work on things you don't get, you might say rust color or green. If you didn't get the water, add water. Action. Just add a few things that you wish you had gotten and get the sense of it now, but knowing that you are training yourself to get the sense of it at remote viewing time when you do your remote viewing session. So you are training yourself. What better time to do it when you have the truth in front of you? Okay, so does that make sense? You have any questions about that? Hopefully you're doing it. And when you finish, this is a session just like the remote viewing session. If you're using a different color pen, you can write end. Otherwise, maybe just say end FB, end feedback session. But when you finish this session, and you've completed the prediction. Your prediction is not done until you complete your feedback session. In fact, it all started here. Okay, so I am going to now look in my inbox, and I think the best way to start talking about this, very good, is to do examples, and we've got one here. So let's see what John did. Okay. So you do it on another sheet of paper, John, right?
Oh yeah, I do both. I do another session basically, sort of to train my subconscious, and I call that the feedback session. You can see up at the top.
Right.
And then, so, also as an adjunct, I go back to my old session and I mark it up with the items that I did get, just to sort of see where I was coming from and where bleed through or displacement happened. But the feedback session for me is it serves a couple of purposes. One is to ingrain that target and sort of send it back retrocausally to yesterday when I would have been viewing. And the other is to for training, because we're trying to develop a language or a bridge between our conscious and subconscious. And the more I write, but the more I consciously write what I want to see, the subconscious sort of helps out a little bit, especially with ideograms. I found that you can refine your ideogram language, and it doesn't always give you what you want, the subconscious, but it does work with you if you if you're specific.
Well, that's great, and this is certainly fits the idea of putting down the session you wish you had done, and that's telling your subconscious that. I really like that, John. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. That's great. Okay, so how about some of others of you sending off your sessions so we can talk about them? This is, of course, a terrific example, and I know, John, you got a hit on this one.
I did. I would have. I should have passed, but I always judge for the webinar. I always judge them accurately, and pretty much in the webinars, I'm always going to pass just because I do sessions that are about an hour long.
I see. Okay.
And 10 minutes is just not as so.
As long as you would like. Okay. Good. And I want to comment on that. John is not alone. I would estimate, and it's hard to tell, it's just from talking to people like this, but I would estimate that maybe 25% of the people do these long sessions because they want to stay in tune with the detailed remote viewing protocols that they've learned in CRV, controlled remote viewing, or other approaches. Most, however, do not. Most do sessions closer to the 10-minute mark. But hey, you should do what feels best for you and what will in fact give you your highest hit rate, highest success rate.
I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure exactly why that is, the fact that I learned CRV first, but I certainly see that after, it takes me about 10 minutes before I get really good sight contact. So, by the time I'm about 30 minutes, 40 minutes in, I started getting really good details, very good details about the target. Mm-hmm. And so I just keep doing longer sessions because it works well, and I tend to ignore a lot of this stuff in the first 10 minutes. I don't ignore it. I mean, I write it down, but I just, for sure, better data comes later on for me.
It's so interesting, and I love the way you said that for me, because so much of this, in fact, all of it is personal, because other people have said to me, what I get early on is the best. It's like the first stuff that comes in for me is the best. And each of us has to find out what is best for you personally. And when we discuss these things, I think it's always important, just as you did, John, it's very important to talk about it in that fashion. So anyway, okay, so we have another one here. This is from Leo. Leo, did you get a hit or a miss? Just so we can put this in context. I wonder if, I always say that and ask that. I wonder if it matters. I wonder if you should do all of us, this is such cutting edge stuff that
yes, his scores are A1, B4. So
A1, okay, so he got a hit. That's good, John, and do tell me that. So he got a hit, and I'm looking at what he did here. He circled the good stuff. He added water. mountains. He wish he had done spray up. That's good. Now we judged it a 4, so there must have been more stuff he thought is good. Right, a 4 on B. Well, this probably did have the smells. Okay, the only thing I would have done more here is I think there was more you could have circled. I mean, you've got dynamics here. You've got sounds here. Circle those. Get the spray. You added spray up. Yeah, that would have been good, but dynamics was good. Sounds was good. So I would have circled those.
Those look like a template that he's written, and he was going to put data down below it, but he...
oh, you don't think he... Oh, you might be right. Okay. He doesn't have a mic, I guess, huh, Leo? Oh, yeah, he wrote. You said template. Okay, fair enough. I take it back. So then what you did add to that was, what does that say? White and black. Okay, stark. Okay, so what you liked was this, and you made it just a little curvy, but that certainly has the characteristics. So this is what caused you to give it that in the mountains.
That's a good drawing. I like that.
And that's what caused you to give it a 4. Okay, I understand what you did now, and that makes good sense to me. And you added just the right level of stuff. You don't usually, unless you get good matches, usually you don't like sketch it over the exact one. So what you did here was good. Okay, very nice. Thank you. Let's see if we have any more. Okay. There, let's do Farouja. What were her scores, John?
I don't have the spreadsheet up.
Okay.
I had 5. I put it at 5. At first I put 4.5 and I changed it to 5 because the sensei part was very strong for me as we were getting into the talking about it. I just felt more strongly as we went along.
Okay. And all you sent was, what is EFS?
That's the end of the session.
Oh, the feedback session. Okay.
I sent 4 pictures, actually. I don't know.
That's what you marked on the others. Okay, yeah, I see them here now.
Right.
Farouja, if you don't mind, can you move the mic away from you a little bit? We're getting some feedback, and we might be able to hear you better.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's a little better.
I can turn down my sound too, from my end.
Oh, that works very well.
Okay.
Okay, now my sound is turned down.
I see. So you went to all of your pictures. You circled the diagram. Yes. Happy face. You traced over it. Very good. You wrote it again. Hopefully you might have even said it out loud, setting up the internal vibrations. Yep. And then here, rolling surface. In this case, it's almost double because the humps look that way as well as a typical symbol for water. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you like the fact that it was a you feel this is rolling, yep, or slow. This is great. I mean, you had a great session and you're doing a great feedback. And how do you feel about all this?
I feel good about it because I made $40. I felt like if I had some skin in the game, it would be helpful. The only thing that I would say is that the one thing that I felt that there was bleed through on were the colors. and to a lesser extent the snow, because I was feeling such a sliding and a flying and it could have been sleigh riding. But that was lesser, and the more the bleed-through I felt was because some of the same colors were existent in both pictures, like the orange fire, orange and yellow fire, and the orange and yellow and the blue sky. So that's one place that I felt that the bleed-through could be considered strong. But since they both have those elements, is that like really bleed-through, or is it something else?
Yeah. Okay, but it was great, and you should be feeling really good about it.
Good, I am. I'm very happy to have the extra $40.
Exactly. Okay, that's terrific.
That actually might help too. She mentioned having skin in the game, and a lot of times, like for instance, in the remote viewing research, they found that training targets were actually the hardest ones that they would do. When they had an operational target for some hostage they needed to locate or save somebody's lives, they ended up having very good sessions. So that seems congruent. If you're going to bet on it, then it might actually help the feedback loop. You never know.
Yeah, that's right. Another point about that is you could see the difference in the emotional content of all of this when you're trying to save somebody's life or something like that. Yet what we're doing doesn't have that level of importance. However, I feel that at the feedback session, you should add happy, positive emotion. I think emotion is kind of a carrier wave or something like that.
Absolutely.
And so you want to bring that emotion in there. And I'm looking for someone who got a miss to send something in, because that's when it's most difficult to do, and yet you can do it. And that's one of the things you should work on. I always recommend really getting into how you feel that for the long term, this miss is going to help you, and so you feel kind of positive about it and get into a happy mode. After going through, look, we're human beings. You're going to have a sad moment, but then turn it around. But be with the emotions as they really are with you, and then work on turning them around. And I think all of that actually enhances the carrier. Okay, so Janice?
I'm here.
Okay, good. Hi. What was your
Hi.
personal prediction on this?
Oh, I was at the opposite end of the spectrum from Farusha.
Okay.
And I am very interested in when you talk to us about displacement, and also because there was such a wide variance in my TARG rating for photo site A and B. Is that kind of an indication when you have such a broad variance, a 5 to a 1, that perhaps you might want to relook at your information?
No, usually that's a good sign. Except, okay, and if you had a 5 and a 1, you displaced. And so after we finish this feedback discussions, I am going to talk about techniques that I believe can reduce the displacement. Okay? So I will talk about that, but if you would look at the scores of the people that got hits, a lot of them also had a large difference between the two confidence rankings, but their higher one was on the correct side. So, let's.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, if she got a 5 and a 1, looking at her session, it looks like she may have misjudged the B side, because there's more than a 1 in her data.
Yep.
I mean, I agree with everything else you're saying, but first of all, there might be she might be lowballing the other target photo site.
Okay, now that's very important for Janice and all of you. When you're in the miss position, first thing you really do, and this really is something to do early, which is exactly what John said. Did you in fact judge it correctly? You know, I don't like to pay a lot of attention to the wrong one, but when you got a miss, it makes sense to think about that and say, why did you give that a 5? Did it really deserve it? And I'm trying to remember it. I don't remember why. I think we even discussed yours. And I
Oh,
can't.
yes, mine was on, I started judging it based on all of a sudden how I felt after I saw the picture of the snow and the cabin in the snow and that feeling that it gave me. So I had a huge emotional impact tied to it, and then I just couldn't get off of any other track.
Okay, but you see, now that's rather interesting. And the emotional impact might have been for reasons other than getting information from your feedback session. At least you...
I think I was totally getting away from my session.
Yeah, and because you look at this now, and intellectually, where you're really largely to be during the judging, you know, intellectually we don't see a whole bunch, but you know, there's a bit of trusting yourself, but there's also a bit of learning from what happened. So this clearly could be a learning one from you, because you look at all the things you circled here on the second one, you know, high, green, was that out? What is that word?
Outdoor.
Yeah, okay, outdoor. What is this? Whistling?
Whistling, and actually I was hearing kind of a whooshing sound.
Don't you think there's something to learn here, Janice?
Much.
I mean, you look at this session now and you say, my God, I had a 5 on the other side, maybe.
So maybe someone else needs to judge my papers, my transcripts.
That's a possibility. Or let me just say, you can learn from this. Trust your own self when you do judging and do it intellectually.
I totally agree with that. You'll even if you end up passing, you will learn so much from judging your own sessions, and then later you can have somebody else judge them. But and I do this a lot too. I'll have some really surprising data when I see the other photo. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't realize that's where that came from. It didn't seem to match at the time, but it's just how the data comes in is really surprising sometimes, and often metaphorical or it's just really interesting. But for judging, moving forward, you learn so much doing self-judging that I highly recommend it.
Well, this has been a big learning experience for me because I've never had a session this so dramatic on the other side.
Well, yeah, the emotion.
Really like it.
But I'm looking at this now, and I don't know why we didn't make more of this yesterday and changed your judging. You know, I guess we can only do so much.
Yeah, APPI yesterday is what happened.
But I mean, you look at this now, and I think all of us, I mean, whistling, that's ridiculous. I don't think I, you know, went so far as to say, what is that word? I just didn't, you know, get it. But when you get a word like whistling with this target, come on.
Well, look at her ideogram. Her ideogram has 3 peaks in it, and then right under she wrote motion energy. I mean, that's...
Oh, no, those peaks were what I added today. That's what I wish I had drawn.
No, I'm talking about in the black.
Yeah.
The black you have up there.
Right, here, and you had motion energy right away.
Yeah.
Right, you had 3 out of the 4. These Gestalt things were all right on.
Look at the moon surface as well. She mentioned moon surface in there. I think that's very significant.
It is kind of a funky surface that
Oh yeah,
that
here.
geyser has, isn't it?
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah.
And marking it as a straight cat, that's another word for those of you who don't know some of the terminology that comes from the trainers, is the same as AOL, analytical overlay.
Oh, straight cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from Lynn or Lori. Huh.
Yeah. But
It does look very moon-like. Look at that.
yeah, a
That's
little bit
a great
like,
picture.
well,
I
yes
have a
and
question
no.
about AOL.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, none of this does, but back here it does. Anyway,
I'm just, yeah.
that's you know, fine. You know, we have our opinions for all this. Anyway, well done, except for your judging. And I think that's what the most that you've got to learn from here is that you did a great remote viewing session. You judged it terribly.
Well, thank you.
And you know, I've been as harsh as I can be, and I don't mean to. But looking at it now, I think you would agree that that's what you have to learn. Your remote viewing session was
Absolutely. I'm
terrific.
glad I learned it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you stay more with the intellect when you do your judging.
Okay.
Okay, so let's now go to Tanya. God, I'm glad all the things you uploaded came through. We had a little trouble with that yesterday. Okay, Tanya, were you on the correct side here or not? Did you get?
I just have to say, like, I feel like I didn't really know anything going in from the very beginning. This is my first time with this group, and learning your lingo and actually understanding the instructions. I really kind of feel clueless still now.
Okay, we'll see if we can help fix that.
Yeah, but when I was yesterday viewing, I did see both pictures. I initially saw the first one, and then I got confused when I was in the session when I saw the snow and felt the cold and saw the house. So I think after that, my intellect took over, and then I saw, you know, who knows what. But feedback was really important for me, and the judging and the protocol and the way you guys do this is still a mystery to me. I haven't had the time to watch the links and study this at all. So this is my first time going in, really feeling like I'm not understanding anything.
Okay, let me just be clear on the lack of understanding. That's the intellectual lack of understanding. You do understand, and it looks like you actually did, you know, reasonably well. You generated a transcript. Yes, it has information from both in it, but you understand the protocol that your job is to describe and sketch the feedback target.
Yes, I understand that.
It's how it all gets put together, and that can appear complicated. But as long as that's the issue, we'll just keep talking about it. Eventually, it'll just sort of snap into place, and you'll get it. So, and we should keep doing that. You know, I am very email accessible, and if you listen to even yesterday's webinar again, and the video is out there, I think you will eventually get it. And always feel free to ask me questions, because that's what I'm doing. That's what I really want to do, is teach this stuff. Okay, but let's look at your feedback sessions. So what you did here was you circled the green. Well, actually the geometry, structure. Now the word structure, and that word is very interesting, and this is another reason self-judging becomes so important. I understand calling those things structures, because they are. They're natural structures, very interesting ones, as a matter of fact. Another judge, when they were judging that, might have thought of that as only a physical structure. And so when you have independent judges, you have to go back and forth a little bit so they understand your words the same way as you mean them. But in this case, you know, you
Okay.
did self-judging, and you know, so that comment goes for everybody. But in this case, perfect. Outside, sky, upper left, yep, shape at the bottom, like a rocket. Yeah, you see the rocket part here was really very good. Yeah, I see you got snow, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. This is at the level of what I would call, and John calls, bleed through. This session is not strong enough, in my opinion, to call displacement. We get to use that word when there is a very strong match to the wrong target. You got some information on the wrong target. I mean, snow is certainly a pretty good example. But, you know, this wasn't a very good fit to the other target. So this is
You
what
know,
we
it was
call,
interesting when that happened, that I was in the target or in the viewing mode, and then all of a sudden I see snow and then this house on the snow, and then I felt cold, whereas before I was outside and it was sunny, and yeah, it was completely different experience. My senses were experiencing completely different feelings, like different vibrations. So I got confused at that. I thought, I don't really understand what I'm supposed to be looking at here, is how I felt.
well, and you want to know something? That's exactly what you did. I mean, that's beautiful, because it's clear that what you did is you went to the feedback session. And we spent a lot of, I'm sorry, you went to the judging session. You went to the judging session, which is what we did immediately after the remote viewing. And you weren't clear really yet deep down on what you were supposed to do. You went to the judging session, and in fact, you viewed both targets very nicely, as a matter of fact. And your challenge, and that's what you're learning from this feedback session, your challenge is to connect up with the feedback target only. And I'm going to give you hints on that, but it seems pretty clear here. What you did was you went and saw both of them. I mean, you got snow, you got your building. I don't know where the puppy came from.
I know, after that I just, okay, I'm wiping the slate of my mind, and I'm going to see what comes next.
Yeah.
People outside, with the puppy, so.
Okay, but I see you learning a lot here, Tanya. And as we're going to be talking more about hints, ways, techniques, and you'll come up with some of your own, to just ignore the feedback session, except when you're in it. And then it's just one other thing you're doing during your day. Yeah, you did an intellectual feedback session, but during your remote viewing time, you're going to key up with your feedback target. But you did a good job of doing both of them here.
Can I comment on that real quick, Marty?
Sure, go ahead.
So, yeah, Marty's exactly right. The fact that when we were judging, we saw both targets right after we did the session, and when we get bleed through, a lot of times that's the reason, is because we get so tangled up in the entangled in the judging session that both photosites bleed through into our sessions, when our mental focus should really be on the following day after the results are in, when we get our feedback. So if you can mentally refocus away from the judging, that's why a lot of times they try and say judging is analytical. Try not to put too much in it and be dispassionate about it. And you want to be passionate when the feedback session comes through. And another really cool tip is during your session, when you are switching in between, it's hard to explain. When the data comes in and you're seeing a man-made structure, and then you're seeing an outdoor landscape, and then back and forth, a mix of data. It seems all jumbled up. What you can do when you see something like structure, I have vertical structure on my session as well. Vertical structure could be man-made or natural. You can probe it, but what I often do is I'll just do another ideogram and I'll write down a probing question. I'll say, okay, I'm confused right now because I'm getting more than one piece of data in when I ask this question about the structure. So I'll do another ideogram to ask my subconscious to specify, and you can keep probing yourself and prompting yourself with new questions in order to refine what the data is that you're getting, and you'll learn more as you go along. But there's a ton of tools that you can use for that. Just remember that you can ask yourself questions to get more refined data.
Thank you, John. I remember when I was looking at the structure, and then I felt the force of now what I call the steam coming out of the top of the mountain. But at the time I was viewing, I could feel the propulsion, so I put rocket-like, but I didn't feel confident it was man-made. It was so that's great feedback. I think I'll learn a lot by probing more into what is it I'm actually seeing.
That's a really good piece of data too that you just described, and you can write that down and then ask your subconscious, okay, what else can I learn about this piece of data? I got rocket and motion. What are you trying to tell me? And then you can just write whatever comes to your mind right then, or do another ideogram right after you ask that question and then probe it and then get data from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Okay, let's go look at Ramel's. I just want to make it a little bit bigger.
There you
on
go.
my screen.
Can you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and
So-
see it. Mm-hmm.
So the blue ones are the ones that, the feedback thing.
Right.
The ideogram, like almost drawing the whole thing, which is really cool. I like that. And going outside, sliding up and down. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling of getting really hot all at once and then cold, that kind of creates a pressure of how the water spews up.
Mm-hmm.
I think pressure.
That's good. Yeah.
This was really good on like a bird's eye view. I thought this was like a light bulb. Somehow like AOL is a light bulb because there's this fine filament that I'm seeing. And it's like circular thing, round thing from down at the base. So I felt like cool, and it's red, it's hot, and AOL is as well as volcano.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, that's a great example of why we write down, even if it's an AOL, we write down because it's still valuable data, especially for judging. But you put it in the right category for sure.
With AOL, segueing to that, do you use AOL Signal? AOLS?
You mean on the transcripts, or
when you're doing the target? So it's like sometimes I get AOL, like definitely an AOL, but sometimes you get this moving, fleeting, morphing, kind of like you gotta get a sense that it's actually from the signal line.
Well, and that's part of trying to refine it, and understand and keep paying attention to just that kind of stuff, and it'll then clarify. And sometimes, sometimes it's sort of a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
And that's
This
just the
thing
way it
does
is.
that. It seems very metaphorical, and when you get a strong AOL, and then it stores morphs and modifies, that's a really good sign that your subconscious is trying to tell you something, you're misinterpreting it, and it's giving it back to you to give you another chance to interpret it. So write it down, and then you can probe it.
It's interesting though. It's like the first thing that AOL that I had was light bulb, and then the next one was like volcano, which is really cool.
Yeah, isn't it really? The thing we're playing here is so cool. I mean, it's just hard to find the right words, but
Yeah.
That works.
And then also over here, I look down on like these two objects of whatever sort, and I somehow my consciousness goes back and forth, back and forth. That kind of tells me there's either I'm looking at either more than one.
Mm-hmm.
Down, I'm making sense of it. So I put down another one in here. Like that would be great if there's three of them. And then this thing out here, which I felt like it was like a filament or something. It's the one spewing. I can be more like I can probe in more on the motion or movement. I didn't really do much probing on this. I just kind of like get going on the, and what the sense of it, just going on with the flow. I'd like to do more probing next time.
Okay.
Taste of metallic. I think there might be a taste of metallic in there because a lot of like metallic elements. Minerals. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've always like my session was just fully on. I was falling into the abyss. That kind of connotes to me I'm in on like height whenever I do sessions. When I'm like falling over, but like really falling down, and then I was skyrocketing up. So that tells me like I am actually elevated somehow. So AOL as a mountain as well.
Yeah.
Second one, which is really quite significant. It's
A lot
almost
of good
like
data here. A lot of good
a
data.
refinement
Oh yeah.
of the other one. You know, the other one that I mentioned, that there's just two things that has a filament, and then it somehow it refines sort of like I drew these three things subconsciously. I wasn't intending to draw, three things. I just did that, like with my hands, just automatically just did that, and I just felt like this gaseous thing around it. It'd be nice to have like those thing again. The sunset.
I mean, this was a very good session. You're feeling really good about it?
Very good. That's why I was like, oh my God, I hope you open my session, because like, oh my God, I would love for you to see it. And then you get it, it's like, oh no.
And
But this one is really cool as well, like this one, because there's the water component to it,
yeah,
which I
there's
labeled AOL Sunset, because there's this beautiful reflection of the water coming from here, and I'm like, oh, I love that one. Yeah, I was like, I was drawn to the central piece. I'd like to see more of the other pieces.
and you gave yourself a 7 on
this.
that. John, do you think it was a 7? Certainly, well, you had some AOLs. I don't know. What do you think? Let me look at it a little more. It was.
That's a really good session. I don't know how he judged it, but.
Well, he gave it a 7.
Oh yeah, for a B. That's right. Oh, I remember. Is this the one he said he was going to judge it a 10 on B?
Yeah.
Or,
I said I wanted to get 10 because the first one, the A was like, I think I judged that as a 7 because to me the scope is like up to 10. That's my mind frame. I didn't really get to like, oh, so the highest one is supposed to be just 7.
Right, but anyway, it was really very good. Period. And are you in one of our groups now? Or are you planning on?
No, this is my first. John invited me to check this out, which is really cool. I like this.
Okay, so let's be sure to put you in, all of you who aren't in a group, if you want to be in. Do you want to be in the CARV group, which is our sports group, or a financial group? Okay,
however you feel feasible.
Okay, I will put you in a group, and the rest of you, please, if you're not in a group, send me an email reminding me to do so. And in fact, Julie Beeman, who's like my admin assistant, is the one who will do this. But you need to request it.
I have a question about feedback.
Yep.
Summary. Is it important to do a summary as well?
Anything you want to do, and I believe a summary, if that feels right to you, is exactly the right thing to do for you. Everybody they build up their own technique. And notice on the screen we have, in fact, let me go back. It's probably time for me to, let me go back and show my screen.
Yeah.
Are you guys seeing
saturate yourself in that feedback photo, the more you can dive into it
Right.
during the feedback session with emotions and with excitement, the better your remote viewing session the day before is going to be. So it's subjective how you do your feedback, and you should definitely find your own method. But the more interest you put into it, the better things will turn out for sure.
Right. Are you seeing Are you seeing my screen now?
Yep.
Yes?
We see the feedback target. Yes.
Okay. Okay. What I wanted to point out is, yes, do a summary, but another place you can do a summary is in this box right here. So the online approach gives you a place to put your comments. Now you may want to write it right on the target so you know when you go back to it or something. So you might want to come up with your own technique, but at least there's an opportunity to put comments here, which you will then have access for through the server. Okay. But anyway, that was excellent. Let me go back now to my and we have at least one more here. Let's look at RK. That one. There it is. Okay. It was Ron, right, Ron? Do you want
Yes.
to talk? You want to talk to us about this one? So you did it on another page. Yeah.
That was yesterday's session.
The summary. So this is the session, but you didn't add anything, so you just gave us your session here?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't add anything.
Okay. And how did you judge the actual target? Did you
4?
you gave a 4? Okay.
Yes.
So I would have recommended circling water, blue, salty, fresh works. There's certainly some white in there.
All of those.
Breezy, red, floating, land, green. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, what that does is as you physically do that, it kind of reinforces kinesthetic, because as you're doing it, you're telling your sub, God, great job. Keep up this. I mean, this is wonderful. There appear to be water and land. The water has a salty taste. The air is fresh. The elements are blue, white, green. This is something floating and sliding and appears to be structures and life
Really
forms. So the life form, the life form is the only thing that wasn't.
I had a life form too, but I knew that I was picking up the photographer. I actually wrote photographer on my session.
Okay, yeah. Interesting.
That, but if it comes up, I have to write it down.
Right. By default, the photographer is not there. Also, it can't be. Well, anyway, all of this was all at the level of like so interesting.
I would
a 5
that
or a 6. Yeah, a 5 or maybe even as high as a. Well, there are no naming of it. But again, you have to realize in my mind, I actually see a 5 as good as a 6. You just didn't get an AOL. You didn't label it. But look, you've got so much which is correct. And then you try to get it with this is the sketch, which is a little bit more off than all the words. Anyway, that was well done, but I really would recommend, Ron, doing a feedback session. Notice now when you hear right now in this webinar, we're paying a lot of attention to it. When you do this in your home alone, you should pay that much attention to it yourself. You know, this whole process that we're going through, you know, we've looked at the picture a few times, we're looking at other people's, we're thinking about the feedback. I mean, this is like a feedback session for everybody. And, but when you're by yourself, you have to make it important on your own. And I really do recommend you circle these things, really get into it and feel really good about it.
Okay.
Okay, well done.
Thank you.
Okay, so, oh, no. Okay, very good. So let's go back. And we did it. So we did the feedback sessions. The next step to finish the protocol is to write a comment. Okay, so at this webinar, we did some great feedback sessions. We emphasized the need to pay a lot of attention to this session when doing it alone at home. And then you click this, and you've now completed it. But one of the things which is done in this ARV protocol, the we protocol, is we keep data, as I've told you, and now is when you get a chance to see it. At the end of the feedback session, there's a link, and some people actually do not like to look at it, but there's a graph here, and then under here, all these comments that you put, they're here. Let me see if yeah, see? This is the webinar. So the comments are here. In fact, further down, you have an opportunity when you come back to look at any of the previous, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. Okay.
That's the forbidden picture, Marty.
I understand. Oh, but I have to I have to figure out what happened there. You know, as some of you know, but not all of you know, I also do the programming, and that is obviously a bug. And I have recently made some changes to allow things like single predictions and stuff like that. So that's a bug, which wasn't there earlier. You used to be able to see the correct feedback, and I will change it so you will be able to do that in the future, just like it was. But the other thing, so again, me being a positive person, that was a good thing, because the sooner I find it, the sooner I can fix it. And you should always point out errors like that to me as soon as you see it. Okay, let's now talk about this chart. This is called the hit rate chart. It keeps track, and we talked about it a little bit before, with the red and being the cumulative hits divided by hits plus misses. Passes are ignored in these curves here. The blue, you can see, stops at every 10. That tells you that's the 10-day hit rate, the last 10 tradable predictions, and the green is the 25-day. And your hit has moved me up a little bit here, which is nice, and that's it. But you now, when you go in with your username as you join a new group, will start building up a chart like this. And it is part of the learning process, because often when you go up real strongly, maybe you were feeling differently about it than when you had maybe 2 misses or in a row or something like that. Anyway, it's one of a potential tool. Some people use it, some people totally ignore it. So the viewer is in charge is one of the really important lessons which were taught to us by actually Ingo Swann was the first person to say that. Okay, now let me go back to this. Okay, so this is just what we did. And now let's go on. I guess I've said this enough, and though I'm not sure you could ever say it too often, the feedback sessions really are the key time to learn, to expand your communication channel, to give it new capabilities, to learn how to better communicate. And I call it the subconscious usually. I like this submerged consciousness. I do not like the word unconscious because there is, in my opinion, no such thing. But there certainly is more than your conscious moment. You've got access to everything, and that comes through your subconscious. So you do your ARV feedback session, and we've talked about writing on the transcript, circling the good matches, reviewing your session. In any case, the AV session, your AJ session, if you had a miss, just to see if you judged it correctly, because we are trying to learn here. And we had a really good example here of how you might learn something not about the judging, but that you happen to like one of the pictures more than the other, and so you gave it a higher judging mark. Try to keep your emotions out of it and do it intellectually. And always enjoy the process. You have to enjoy what you're doing here. If you don't, find something else to do with your time. Okay. Now, I want to talk about beacons. I want you to get this idea of a beacon being something which can guide you to the correct feedback session. This coordinate for what we just did is a beacon. I mean, if you really think about it, the look of it, the shape of it, that's why I'd like you to draw over it, the sound of it is a very unique kind of thing. It's just numbers. You don't have to memorize it or anything, but the numbers maybe are a little bit like a telephone number. A telephone number can be viewed as a beacon. What do? You dial this number, and magically, of all the people in the world, it goes to a place where you expect a person, you know, maybe a member of that family, but it's going to a place that you intended. And you expect when you dial that telephone number to have that person pick it up. And guess what? It happens. So a telephone number, again, is a kind of entanglement between something you intend and the feedback you get when they answer the phone. So we have this idea of beacons all over the place. Movement, feeling, emotions, all of those things are kinds of beacons. Do similar actions during your remote viewing session and feedback session. Okay? That's the connecting entanglement. And again, intending to do that, making it clear to your subconscious that that's what you're doing, and you're going to do it at both times, and you do it at both times because you expect to do it. It becomes like a habit. It becomes a very important kind of beacon. And so there really is a thing called beacon power. I love Google and all the things you can find there. But beacon power, this whole idea, is very powerful. and you use it all the time, but why not make it even stronger? Emphasize it in this context, because then you'll make more contact with your feedback target and you'll get even better sessions. So there are other kinds of beacons. You know, these are sort of standard beacons. There's even a Star Wars beacon, get you to do hyperspace travel. But the kind of beacons that we use, people use, and I've used this one in multiple different ways at workshops where I give everybody a candy kiss, is you take the candy kiss during a remote viewing session with the intention of opening it and eating it at the feedback session. So you just hold it and you do that, but it is a type of beacon. I have also, using it, opened it, taken a bite of half of it, that was always fun, and intending to eat the other half, and do eat the other half at the feedback session. So you can do that with cookies. I happen to be a chocolate lover, but not everybody likes chocolate. You can do it with healthy things like an apple, so you can use taste. Or how about using texture or smell? This could be a beacon. You do these at remote viewing time, connect it up at feedback time. The point is you're setting your intention, you're expecting to do something at feedback time, which is going to act as a beacon. You can use sounds. You can go on the internet, and there are all kinds of sounds that you can get, sound apps. You could choose one even randomly and then make that same sound be the one that you do at feedback time. I mean, these are just, you know, different ideas. You can make a paper plane and then throw it at feedback time. You understand the idea. What you're doing is communicating intention and expectation with your subconscious. So you're connecting up your subconscious with your conscious mind, intention, expectation, period. Connecting with your remote viewing session and your feedback session. I use a pencil here really to remind me. You could use it as an object. You could use any object. You know, you can spin an object. You can use any object. But this also reminds me of a woman who used to put a design around her blank sheet of paper just on the outside before she did her RV session. You know, then she put the coordinate on top when she did it. Her intention was to do that exact same design again on a blank sheet of paper at feedback time. And she would do her feedback session then on another piece of paper which had the same design. In fact, coming up with something which is unique to you is probably better than any of these ideas, because it just makes a stronger entanglement. Okay, so I think beacons are really very important. So I've emphasized up to now intention, attention as key concepts to do this entanglement, connection between remote viewing and feedback. But there's another kind of key concept which assists in expanding and improving your communication channel, and that's this word attention. Now, pay attention to your beacon, for example, when you start your RV and feedback session. So you're now kind of emphasizing your intention and expectation, intention and expectation by paying attention to it, but also you're paying attention all the time. Your consciousness and what's going on with it is just something which you want to do all the time, because that'll tell your subconscious that, you know what, this communication channel really is important to you, and you really want to learn the language better and better, and you want to be able to pick up more and more of the information that's there. I love these quotes, and here's kind of a great one. Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. I thought that was very interesting, and when you kind of let that sink in, it's got a lot of truth to it. You're a conscious being, and where you choose to pay attention is generous to that thing. And I can't think of anything much better to pay attention to than your own consciousness and the things it is giving you. And so you're being generous to yourself with, well, you know, that's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. And one of the things you may very well decide to pay attention to is the fact that you'd like to get more health and more wealth involving the larger community that you're part of. And I think that's sort of a kind of wisdom that comes naturally as you get more and more into realizing that you are a rather wonderful human being with these wonderful capabilities. Now, this idea of intention and now attention and expectation being so important was actually written about by Joe McMonagle and Ed May. Joe, in my opinion, and we have him as in many workshops as we can, and Ed May comes to as many as well. Joe is probably the best public remote viewer in the world. Ed May is a scientist that has done more of the work and collecting of the work from back to when remote viewing was a super secret project to this day. So he's kind of really one of those long-lived people who's been around forever. And this is their summary. What is clear, at least to those of us on our long-established team, is that intention, attention, and expectation play a very important role in the success of both application and research of remote viewing. Okay, so just take that in and make it part of this wonderful precog journey that you've now entered. The confidence is another word. It is closely related to everything that we're doing. You know, the more confidence you can gather, obviously the better it'll be. And doing all this stuff and getting the feeling of confidence, which is what happens as you do your journey more and more, is part of the journey. And there you go. I guess there's a certain level of confidence there. And now I'm just getting near the close here, but I think what's really important is for each of us to always beginning to more deeply look at what we personally believe are the capabilities of ourselves and this communication channel. You know, you always get to the margin, and ultimately I believe, and I say this intellectually, for me personally, I intellectually believe that if you can imagine it, it can be done. But I don't have that all the way down in my deepest gut yet, I know, because I see myself doing and saying things, which show that I really don't, deep in my gut, believe it, because I don't believe I can do anything. I don't believe I can be at 100%. In fact, one of the reasons I put out 80% is I wanted to have something which was consistent with my own belief system. And that's the key point here, is know what your belief system is about this precognition and be consistent with it. Know what is important. I've told you what I believe is important, but what matters is what you believe is important. And then act consistent with that. So most of us who are here and have gotten to this place by who knows what route, all of us a different route, do come up from a place where we believe the power of the subconscious mind is really rather tremendous. Basically, the limits that we put on ourselves are about the only limit. And here's a quote from Anthony Robbins. What we can or cannot do, what we consider possible or impossible, is rarely a function of our true capability. It is more likely a function of our beliefs about who we are. Do we really believe deep down in our gut that we are basically non-physical beings? Spiritual beings that are living and have the wonderful consciousness ability to be in a physical world, but that's just a part of us, and that our communication channel indeed is connecting up with something much deeper than that, that's connected to everything? Interesting things to ponder and to really see how you deeply believe that, and then to use it, make it real in this world. Okay, a few more quotes. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. Good old Teddy Roosevelt. You gotta love that look. Okay, and then Gandhi. If I have the belief that I can do it, I shall surely acquire the capacity to do it, even if I may not have it at the beginning. Dream it, believe it, achieve it. It might be in our ARV context. I can give a good description of any target. Often, I will get from people who have a miss that, boy, that was a terrible target. And you know what? It may be. But that attitude is one more of blame rather than believing in principle I can do that target. And what do I need to increase my communication channel so that I get it the next time I get a target like that? And maybe it was my belief that it was a bad target that helped me get a miss. I mean, it's just, there's so different ways of looking at things, and watch yourself as you go through this. Because I do believe that any of us can get a good description of any target. I want to give you one example of that. Ingo Swann, when working with Ed May, had as a task, an ARV task, to do 2 different kinds of graph paper, the rectangular type and then what was called the polar type. Basically, the only difference was squares versus, I think, circle type difference. And he did very well, thank you. Even the fact that they would set something up shows the belief of you can get any target. So that's a good a good belief, I believe, to have. I can achieve and maintain an 80% hit rate. Yeah, hey, some of you believe that you can do even better than that. We have people now who are just about there. One person has certainly done that at the 75% hit rate. I can transfer my communication skills to other aspects of my life. I really do believe that what we're about here, for it to work best, needs to be integrated with the rest of your life. It's not the kind of thing that you want to sit down and do your RV session, do your judging, do your remote viewing session, then ignore it. This is just too important. And I think it'll just work best. This is where the health, wealth, and wisdom also comes in. You want to integrate this in your life. And take responsibility for your beliefs and the integration. Here's another quote from Teddy. If you could kick the person in the pants responsible for most of your trouble, you wouldn't sit for a month. So kind of like that. Okay, very bottom line is here on this journey. As you're doing your precognition, learn from your hits. You certainly can. And mostly be happy. Why not? That's pretty easy to do. When it comes from the misses and the passes, the intellect is going to tell you lots of things, but basically I believe the place to look is inside yourself. We've just seen such good examples of that here. Up from your subconscious, for example, came the fact that you might like one picture better than the other. Hey, are you going to let that limit you? But you got to see that. That came from your deeper self. That kinds of stuff actually comes from your communication channel. Use the very communication channel that you're trying to grow to learn from your misses and passes. And that old statement that there's more to learn from misses than hits is very often true. So learn about yourself, and again, mostly be happy. Hey, when you look back at your life, the more happy moments you have, I think, the happier you'll be about your life. And you don't learn to walk by following rules. You learn by doing and falling over. So again, you learn a lot from your misses. And in many ways, the precognition we're doing, and I guess that's why I put this one in here partially, is we're not following what society would say is an appropriate, even a possible thing to do. Okay, I actually think I would prefer to leave this one on here. Mostly be happy, learn about yourself, and with that I will end the formal portion of this, and let's have questions and comments, please.
What about displacement?
The whole beacon portion, and I should have brought in displacement. I usually use that word. The whole beacon portion was to get you to not displace.
Okay.
The reasons for displacement that people give, in my opinion, well, let me just say, often are excuses, and it's a way of not taking responsibility. On the other hand, you could take the point of view that your subconscious did it to you on purpose to teach you something. I actually like that point of view. When you get such a good description of the wrong target, it will force you in a way to look at, why did I do that? And that should be the attitude. Newbies to this will often say, hey, that was great. Look, I used my precognition, which was true, because the way the system is set up, it is truly precognition, because you don't even know anything about the poor target that you described, the wrong one that you described. So it is precognition. But don't pat yourself on the back because you didn't do the task. You did the wrong one. So use it to learn something. And when you have displacement, that's an opportunity to learn the most. So you really, I mean, that's my attitude. I don't think there's much more to say about it. Does it happen? It does happen. The viewers who get to the level where they're precog professionals, which is where we hope everybody gets to, at least a very large percentage of people, because that's going to lead to the paradigm shift that I believe I'm working towards. Get over it. I mean, it's not something that I can tell you do this and this and this and you'll get over it. I'm giving you some suggestions, but the way you're going to get over it is by talking to your deeper inner self. However.
Yeah, we don't entirely. Displacement is one of those. Don't know exactly why it happens. And realistically, it happens for any number of reasons. It could be how you feel about the different target pairs, or I like Marty's second idea that maybe your subconscious is trying to tell you something. The more RV you do, the more subconscious data comes through that will surprise you. It might not even be relevant to RV, but in psychological terms, the subconscious in general with people has been trying to communicate with the conscious mind for so long and create a better and more refined dialogue that once you open up to remote viewing, all kinds of very interesting things happen. And so we don't exactly know why displacement is, but it's something that we all fight. And it's a great learning experience for sure.
Yeah, and even the best viewers, it happens from time to time, but less and less, and so that's one of the things which needs to be conquered. So I hope that helps you. In some ways, it's one of those, darn it, because you wish there would be an easy answer, but ultimately it really does come down to learning about yourself. If we had it solved completely, we'd be done. I guess we'd be on the other side of the paradigm shift, right? Because if you think about it, that's about the only reason people are not all or almost all getting up to the 70% level, say. When I first got into this, I thought what you would have would be garbage sessions, which you would be able to mark as passes, or good sessions you would be on, right? But
Mm-hmm.
displacement is the only reason, when you have a good session at least, that you get misses. You know, when they're lower scores like the 3.5s and 4s, I could be judging. You know, there are a lot of other things going on. But if you just wait for those good sessions, you would think you would never really get a miss. And yet we do. And
Yeah,
that's one of the last challenges.
it's an enigma. You can have a session that you would judge legitimately as a 6 or a 7, and be full on in displacement mode, and not describe your feedback target at all. You're describing the other photo site, and with incredible detail, but still be off. I personally think that it may sound out there, but realistically, the multiple realities exist simultaneously, and we may be tuning in to just the wrong outcome, and not the one that becomes realized after the fact. You know, this is a very quantum thing, that we're a quantum tool that we're using basically, and it's not exactly like it has an on and off switch. It's very subjective, and there's a lot of enigmas with it that we're trying to figure out, but it's a lot of fun at the same time.
It is. And notice, and I love it, the intellect. And you have to realize, as I think most of you know, I'm a scientist. And so my intellect, of course, is in here a lot trying to figure this out. And that's okay. I mean, that's part of it. But the fact is we don't have it figured out. It's just there. And most of the time, just ignore it and describe and sketch your feedback target. Okay, other comments, questions?
I wanted to say that, just if anybody has questions, we have a discussion board on the APP website. You can just ask any question you want. There are no stupid questions. But nobody got to this point in RV without somebody helping them out with ideas or tech or tools. And for those of you that find some of the lingo confusing, I highly recommend David Morehouse's book called Remote Viewing, and will take you from crawling to sprinting in RV, and it's the most detailed book on remote viewing that's out there. So if you want to learn more about it, or if some of the lingo is confusing, there's a lot of special language that we use. It's all detailed in that book, and I'm not affiliated with it. I'm just recommending it.
And I just want to add, not taking anything away from that, John, that you don't need to go into all of that deep stuff. What we've had in these last 2 days, that lingo is enough. Because if it's the ARV aspect of your consciousness and precognition aspect of it is where your focus wants to be, you've really had enough. And now it's practice, 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 you know, like a doctor or a shaman.
Oh yeah, we saw some great sessions that were not even using strict CRV.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. But some of you may want to get to where you can find missing persons and get the kind of detail that the remote viewers in the military did. And then you might want to look into this also. But anyway, it's sort of controversial on whether you even need that. There's a controversy.
Well, My comment was based on throughout the webinar, we had a few questions on some of the terminology we were using.
Yeah. Okay.
And we just overlook it sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Well taken. Well taken. No problem. I put in the chat box the link to our primary website. Right there, there's a easy to find place where you can join the discussion list that John just mentioned. So
is there a link to the Google Groups from that from the main website?
When you become a member, we immediately put you in the Google group.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's, in a way, that's what it means to be a member of APP, is that you're on our Google group. So that's the way to have that happen. Also there you can ask and say, I want to be in a prediction group. Yeah, why don't I just go to the website? And you can ask there as opposed to sending me an email, but you're welcome to send me an email. In fact, please do. I'd love to get, comments about what we've done here. Okay, so this is the website. And the AppFest is what's being highlighted now, but where it says contact, here you go. You can ask us anything here, like to be on a group, to become a member. Would you like to join a group as a viewer? Would you like to join the email discussion list? So you just go there and click contact, and you can go from there. This website has all kinds of examples from people just like you. We got lots of session examples. We have all kinds of past webinars, including yesterday's is up here. I will now be making this recording. We'll go and it'll be up here as well. Plus there are all kinds of, past webinars going back many years. We encourage you to actually become a paid member because that actually gives you access to what we call our Talk With series, which has had all of these people, Russell Targ, McMonagle, Ed May, Mishloff, Dean Radin. There are actually some people in Europe that I never knew about, but have been getting turned on to, that are doing some really good work, and they've given us some really nice talks. So anyway, there are a lot of other people who give these talks, some from the Stargate years. Anyway, this website has lots and lots of information on it, and feel free to use it, and I hope you will, if you're not already, become a member and join us. Okay.
There's lots of past webinars that we've done that are well worth listening to.
Yeah. Well, that's right. That's here. And then you can go to the older ones. We just did this. So. Okay. It's beginning to feel like it's time to end this. And I thank you all for joining me here. This is something which I really enjoy doing, and I just hope you will just keep precogging and keep expanding your communication channel. So all of you take care, and I will end this now, if I can find the right place.
Hi guys, have a good weekend.